Welcome to Mythical Phylogeny Adventures. I'm your guide, Jason. Mother's Day is approaching, so I feel we should look at the many mothers of mythology. But as there are so many both good and bad ones, which should we look at? Who is probably the most important mother in mythology? Well, why not go with one of the earliest mothers, Tiamat. No, Tiamat is not really an evil giant, five-headed dragon goddess like portrayed in Dungeons & Dragons. But that might actually be a more admirable version. Yeah, we're about to meet a pretty nasty piece of work. She comes from the Numa Elish, the ancient text which depicts the Babylon mythological creation. She is the personification of the primordial sea and salt water. Though even here, she is said to be a mixture of woman and beast, including having a tail, udders, and breasts both. Often, she is described as more of a sea serpent or water dragon form. So, even her earliest depictions were meant to show her as a bit savage. Okay, we're already leaning towards one head of D&D's Tiamat. She is the Umu Hubur, or Mother Watercourse, the one who formed all things, but she didn't create it all on her own. She had a husband and consort named Abzu, or Apsu. He was the personification of the river, or groundwater. I'll let you play out your imagination real fast. This was meant as imagery for sex. Oh, if you wanted a funny description, you should have heard my mythology teacher's description. In the beginning, they were the only things to exist. These two would roar in the primordial chaos to bring forth the world, and from them would come the first generation of the gods. Their eldest children are Lamu and Lahamu, and they would serve as the gatekeepers of the temple of Enki and Abzu. From them would come the ends of heaven, Anshar, or heaven's totality, and Kishar, the earth. They would meet at the horizon and bring about their children, Anu, heaven, and Ki, earth. And from them would come Enki, and then Ishtar, or Inanna, and her husband Dumazi. Hopefully this family tree isn't too complicated. That isn't too confusing, is it? We actually see something similar in these multiple generations of gods in Japanese mythology, though theirs is a bit longer. Now, as you might have expected, there are issues. Their children are noisy. The younger generations are loud, obnoxious, and rambunctious, and Tiamat and Abzu don't care for the noise. Doesn't that sound familiar? I'm sure you've all heard it. Them noisy kids, get off of my lawn. Back in my day, children knew proper behavior. Does that sound like anyone's grandparents? Yeah, that was happening way back then. I've said it many times before, but humans in our culture hasn't really advanced much in 10,000 years. Well, Abzu wanted to discipline the children, even though Tiamat was a bit reluctant. But Enki or Ea would have a premonition about what was about to happen, and Enki captured and imprisoned Abzu beneath his own temple, and in time be slain there. This temple would also be the birthplace of Marduk. Kingu or Quingu, another child of Tiamat and Abzu, in some takes, would go and speak with Tiamat and explain what was happening. Some of the others or the older gods would pressure Tiamat to conflict, and Tiamat would respond by birthing 11 monsters: Basmu, the venomous snake; Usum Galu, the great dragon; Musmahu, the exalted serpent; Mususu, the furious snake; Lamu, the hairy one; Ugalu, the big weathered beast; Iridamu, mad hound; Gotabululu, the scorpion man; Umudabrutu, violent storms; Kululu, fishmen; and Kusariku, the bullmen. Yeah, that's a list. In addition to being the mother of the gods, she is also the mother of monsters. This is similar to Echidna in Greek mythology, who was the mother of things like Cerberus, the Chimera, and the Hydra. Tiamat also held the Tablet of Destinies, a set of clay tablets marked with seals which would grant authority over the universe. She would give them to Kingu, and also took him as her new consort. He would lead her army of monsters into battle against the younger gods. Anu was able to rescue them though, but he had a condition. He would become the king of the gods for his actions. Thus began a war between the gods and monsters. Long story short, Tiamat loses. Using wind arrows, nets, clubs, and an invincible spear, Marduk delivered the final blow. Anu's reign would be replaced by Enlil, and then Marduk. Tiamat's remains would be spread forth, Her ribs turned into the vault of heaven and earth. Her eyes were plucked out and would become the source of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. And her tail was thrown into the sky, where it would become the Milky Way. As for Kingu, he escaped for a bit, but was eventually slain. His blood would mix with the clay of the earth, which would make the bodies of humans. They were meant to be servants to the younger gods. So what do you make of such a goddess? We could call her an evil goddess to be sure. She was fine with murdering her own children, just because they were noisy. Yeah, probably not the best mother. And making a horde of monsters does little to improve her standing. In many ways, she is also similar to the Greek gods, with their rebellions between the generations, such as Kronos and Zeus, or even Uranus and Kronos. She is rather short-lived through the myths though. Yet, you are probably wondering, what the blazes is up with her description? A sea serpent mixed with a woman? A dragon with udders? What is going on here? Well, you may have noticed, but different religions view the relationship between the mortals and gods differently. In Greek mythology, gods were to be revered and feared. In Norse mythology, the gods were generally viewed as kinder. A great example is the tale of when one of Thor's goats had its leg broken by a child who disobeyed Thor's orders. And he scolded the boy rather gently to put it, no yelling or threatening. That was safe for Loki. When it comes to Babylon, their gods were viewed with a more negative take. Throughout their mythology, their gods were more violent and harsh than others. They both punished and guided humanity. And this is what led them to creating such a monstrous deity. As to the strange combination, well, she draws from not just dangerous beasts, but also the animals of civilization, such as cattle. This brings up the duality, which we see in their gods, a mixture of guidance and danger. Okay, how does the myth compare to the version we see in Dungeons & Dragons? Well there, she bounced around in her standing amongst the various pantheons, and even served under several prominent demons. She is a lawful evil dragon goddess who oversees the chromatic dragons, and is the sister of Bahamut. Now Bahamut comes from Arabic mythology. It is a giant fish, which bears the cosmos and world, so a massive difference than the dragon which oversees the good metallic dragons. Tiamat here is described as a 5-headed dragon monster. She has a red head, a blue head, a white head, a green head, and a black head. Yeah, a big difference compared to a sea serpent-like figure. You could argue that the mythological variation would be a more chaotic evil by the end, rather than lawful evil. Okay, so why did they change Tiamat so much from the sea dragon to the multi-headed version? Well, one of them does stand out more, I would say. We've seen a sea serpent and a dragon woman elsewhere in mythology and in D&D, but a 5-headed dragon? That tends to stand out. It can also serve as the personification of the evil chromatic dragons. In this form, she serves as the embodiment of evil, and throw in the destructive potential of a dragon? Yeah, it's a statement foe to be sure. You've got a foe here with multiple different elemental attacks, fire, ice, and so on. This can actually tie back to the strategies used by the mythological Tiamat. There she used various monsters, each with their own tactics and descriptions, such as Violent Storm, Venomous Snake, Great Dragon, Big Weather Beast, and so on. But don't forget Mad Hound, and the Hairy One. I guess early historians and mythologists didn't need to go really hard on the naming conventions of the time. From these names, we can see several possible ones having connections to the elemental affinities of the heads. We do see several connections to storms and weather, both of which are good connections to the sea, which is what Tiamat was the personification of. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of the D&D Tiamat. We are taking a goddess who brought forth the rest of the pantheon and the monsters of the world. She was a powerful being to be sure, one whose wrath and anger forced the rest of the gods to ally and establish their leader. She even held the Tablet of Destiny, which gave her rulership over the cosmos. And to have her reduced to serving several lords of the infernal as an underling doesn't really fit her role in mythology, does it? You could easily say that she is the mother of mythology. Thank you for watching, adventurers. Please return next time. Until then, I'll see you on the roads.